Awesome. Hi. Well, it's nice you're here. How are you doing today? I am your holistic nutrition practitioner. My name is Lucas Simmons, and I'm here every Tuesday at 1 p.m. on Facebook Live, and then dropping it into the YouTube channel so that you can go back and watch stuff according to different topics that we're covering over the course of the month. So here in the month of December, on All Things Good Food and You, we are talking about healthy aging. Here's the tricky part about it. If I use the word healthy in any of my posts, I get kicked off of the social media. So if you're wondering why I'm trying to use all these cutesy words, it's because I'm trying to keep it in the mainstream or in the stream where people can find it. Whatever. We do our best, and we say thank you as we move on. I don't know. I'm a holistic nutrition practitioner, and I'm here today to talk about healthy aging and what are some of those pieces you can put in place if this is something you want to work towards. So today I've been toying with, what do you think that top food is? Because that's our topic. So so far I've heard about liver. Somebody said booze. I think they were tongue in cheek. Somebody said eggs. Somebody said fish. And I have one gal who said the right answer. And it is stock and broth. Yeah. The single best food if you want to support aging in a manner that Mother Nature intended is to have a steady stream of meat stock and or bone broth in your daily diet, if you will. And when I say diet, I mean like that's the food you eat. It's not like you need to go on a diet. Whatever. Everyone's on a diet all the time because you're eating food. That's what a diet is. Why don't you just eat food? Get over it. Okay. I have my bee in a bonnet today. Okay, it's nice that everyone's here. Thank you for coming and tuning in. We are going to talk about a couple of reasons why meat stock is my absolute favorite food when we are talking about dietary things to support healthy aging in place. First things first, this is not medical advice. This is really just food. Let's make it obvious. There are so many reasons why meat stock and bone broth are at the top of my list. So meat stock and bone broth are traditional foods that are universal to all traditional cultures. When you start to look at how people ate around the globe, everywhere, there's not a single population that was vegetarian or vegan. There were some populations that featured a lot more vegetarian and vegan foods in their day-to-day diets, but they did consume some type of animal product somewhere. And in all of these cultures, the way that they consumed animal products was to honor the entire animal tip to tail. And so bringing in meat stock and bone broth is a way that we honor that animal tip to tail so that we're able to make sure that we have honored the entire animal's life, if you will. And in so doing, we're imparting nutrients for our body that are hard to find by just eating the muscle meats. Here in 2020, there's a lot of people saying, yeah, we got to eat a lot of meat, so they eat bacon and steak. Well, muscle meat and bacon, super delicious. It's not the entire picture. We need to bring in all types of meat, organ meats, and things like stock and broth, because they impart some of these really harder to find nutrients that are necessary on so many levels, especially when we're looking at healthy aging. So it's a common thread to all ancestral diets, so it kind of makes sense. It doesn't matter who your people are behind you in terms of your lineage. They all had meat stock or bone broth to some extent. Probably bone broth, most of them actually. So if you understand that when we're talking about aging and the food things you can put in place to support healthy aging, put that in place, we are talking about inflammation. So when we're talking about those chronic diseases, we sort of equate with, as we age, we're supposed to, it's kind of normal that you're going to have one of these big, huge chronic diseases, right? There's the big ones, like the top ones in Canada, interestingly enough, 25% of our elder population, 25% of people 18 and over, crazy enough, have high blood pressure. That's the top most chronic disease. Then osteoarthritis comes in next with 14% of our adult population. Mood and anxiety is third. Osteoporosis, diabetes comes after. Asthma and then COPD are in our top 10 most diagnosed chronic diseases in Canada. Heart disease is in there. And rounding out the top 10, we got cancer and dementia. When I read all of these things, the majority of them, except for the mood and anxiety piece, and perhaps asthma. But high blood pressure, osteoarthritis, osteoporosis, diabetes, COPD, heart disease, cardiovascular stuff, cancer, dementia, these are all conditions that we would associate with our aging population. And I dare say, I think a lot of people would say, well, that's just kind of a normal consequence of aging. Like maybe you're lucky enough to be able to age, but this is kind of the payoff. What is common is not necessarily normal. Let's make that clear from the get-go. Because it's common doesn't mean it's supposed to happen. Doesn't mean you can't help but say, well, I guess that's what I get. Not necessarily. There is a higher incidence of developing these types of chronic conditions as we age, and the incidence of developing it increases as our calendar years start to add up. Sure. Do you know what's at the root of all of that? Do you know what's common amongst all those 10 and every other chronic condition that comes after that we would typically associate with aging? Do you know what's common? Inflammation. Yeah. Inflammation is the aging inside the body. That's what inflammation does. It chronically ages you from the inside out. Yeah. That's what growing old is. It's inflammation. Oh, thanks, Luca. Now I'm sad. Oh, well, okay. So you can be sad if you want, but also like move a little bit on. Move past that because, oh yeah, that is a common thing. What can you do to help reduce that inflammation? Your top best food will always be meat stock and or bone broth, depending where you are on the spectrum of how you're feeling. If you are new to doing some work to bring down this chronic inflammation, then you need to start with meat stock. If you've done some really great gut work, you don't have histamine issues, and your gut is feeling quite robust, now you can start to build in bone broth. And bone broth is what you want to reach for eventually. You want to get to a stage where you can tolerate bone broth. Somebody's asking, does fish stock count? Absolutely. Fish stock is totally awesome. Fish stock, a short cook, is really short. A bone broth of fish a fish stock will cook a little bit longer. If you can tolerate fish and you don't have histamine issues, have at her. Histamine issues tend to be higher in fish. Histamine count is higher in fish. So opting for more poultry-based short cook meat stock will be a better option. Meat stock is the anti-inflammation food as medicine you want in your toolkit. I have a link to how to make it. I will put a link later at the end of the chat so that you can find it in the comments below. But it's a link to the recipe and how to make a meat stock and explaining the difference between meat stock and bone broth. There's also a video there. Like, there's no excuse, friends. Yeah, you can buy bone broth, but if you react to bone broth, then you need to do meat stock first. I've talked ad endum about this conundrum. So bear with me as I skip over it because there's more that I want to talk about today in terms of healthy aging. So I love meat stock and bone broth because they address ground zero for all of that commonality between all of these chronic diseases we associate with aging. They all address ground zero, the gut. Any food you can do to support the gut first and foremost will help support your immune system, which 80% of it lives in the gut. Do you know what mounts that inflammatory reaction in the body that can bring on those chronic diseases? Your immune system. Anything you can do to support the immune system will take you that step further. Meat stock also really nourishes the liver on a brilliant level. Do you know what actually orchestrates the entire immune reaction in the body? Your liver. Heck yeah. Guess what one of the best foods for your liver is? Meat stock and bone broth. Oh my gosh, can we still like... Do we need to clarify this even more? Okay. So gut love at ground zero is why I love it. Item number 1. Number 2, digestion. Meat stock really helps to rev up digestion and helps enhance your body's own ability to break foods down into nutrients. For your immune system to mount the reactions in order to reduce what's going on in the body, for your liver to also mount the detoxification work that you need to move inflammation out, you want to break it down and then you want to move it out, you need ingredients. Part of what contributes to the buildup of garbage and our slowed ability to move it out of the system is because we're having a hard time getting nutrients out of our food. Because as we age, it's a natural inclination to start losing the ability to take food and break it down into nutrients. At the age of 40, it starts to wane, and we start to sort of go to this stage. And we have a hard time getting down to breaking it into nutrients. Meat, stock, and bone broth enhance that function. So I love that. It gives you the nutrients you need to move stuff out. It gives you nutrients you need to protect your body from the damaging effects of inflammation. So it keeps you young. Yeah. The fountain of youth is found in meat stock. Oh my gosh. Okay. The other piece to this too, because I'm starting to run low on time. I'm trying to keep these to 15 minutes. Connective tissue. Connective tissue is one of the most abundant tissues in your body. It holds your skin together. It is your connective tissue you need for the gut lining. You have connective tissue in your joints, in your fascia, in your bones, in your skull, in your teeth, in your tendons, in your ligaments. It is the most abundant protein in the body's collagen in this connective tissue. It's your biggest organ in the body. What's the best food for this? To keep you strong, to hold you up, to keep the outside world out and the inside world in. What food helps do that? Meat stock and bone broth. What? I know. So it holds you together. It provides your body with important protein, and it's an easy to digest protein. That's the other piece of this. Meat stock is not just for the convalescing, although it's pretty amazing for people who are having a hard time. Meat stock is not just for the old, although it's really nourishing and a really awesome way to get food and nutrients and support the body's innate wisdom to get through the day. Meat stock is good for people working on inflammation, people who don't want inflammation and don't yet have it. It's also the same food that is really good to help protect you against inflammation. It kind of does all of the things. So my absolute best top food to include on the absolute daily, if you can, is meat stock and bone broth. Figure out which one is best for you. Meat stock does the repair. Bone broth maintains. Do you need to repair the gut or do you need to maintain the gut? Do a little digging on that. I'll put a link down below. Somebody said something about calcification. Okay, so calcification is actually, is there a place, okay, I'll talk about calcification in a second. Is there a place to buy good quality meat stock? I just don't have the time to make it happen myself. There's no one in town making it. You can ask and request somebody to make a short cook meat stock. Susan Quirk at Brew, B-R-U-H-E. She is in Ramsey. You can ask and request if she'll make you a few batches that you can then take home and freeze. She does make things on demand. It's not inexpensive, but she's making you the top quality meat stock, and you can qualify with her if you need a meat stock or if you need a bone broth. Contact her at Brew, B-R-U-H-E, and do a little Google search to find this little mighty food stand in Inglewood. Empire Provisions will make it, but you have to get like a bunch of people together and they will make like 100 liters of it at a sitting. So it's not a cheap venture. It's a big job. If you have an Instant Pot, it takes you 40 minutes of chicken gizzards or chicken backs and necks or chicken feet in your Instant Pot. Cover it with water, go for 40 minutes, turn it off, strain it, put it in the fridge, you're done. That is what meat stock is. Okay. Calcification. Calcification is one of those issues that can contribute to aging as we go along. So part of calcium deposits in the body happens because there's inflammation at the root of it. So when calcium is depositing in your arteries, on your pineal gland, in other areas where you don't want it to deposit necessarily, that is one of those common things that happens with aging, but doesn't necessarily mean it's normal. So a way to reduce those calcium deposits, meat stock and bone broth will help. Adding foods that are high in vitamin K2 and in magnesium in your life will help to also keep those on the calcium out and into the bones where you want it to go. Interestingly enough, that we have calcium issues like osteoporosis happening, where people are having calcium deposits in their arteries. Why is that happening, do you think? One guess. Inflammation. So listen, there are so many important things to look at when we're talking about healthy aging. I will be talking about them all month long. If you're interested in getting a little bit deeper and understanding for yourself what might be contributing to the internal inflammaging, they call it, then hit me up and let's get a conversation started. It doesn't have to include money. We can do a free chat if you want. just hit me up and I'll set you up with a couple of options. In the meantime, food as medicine. Who's going to make some meat stock today or bone broth? Okay, thanks. Take care, everybody, and we'll see you here next Tuesday for yet another Tuesday Live. Salut, à bientôt. Yeah, I love bro too. Salut.